So one really cool thing that this movie does is kind of put little homages and little hints of other old horror movies in this one and some of the shots and in some of the things that happen. Like The Exorcist, The Shining, there's just all these little cool things that they did to kind of hint at all these other horror movies that came before it. And I loved that little detail because, as we all know, the devil's in the details. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today our movie in the middle is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. This third installment of the Conjuring series once again stars Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren as they try to clear the name of a kid who committed murder while possessed. The thing I love about the Conjuring series the most is that while it is a horror series, it has a lot of heart to it between the husband and wife Ed and Lorraine Warren. Just their chemistry and their love for each other, and we actually care about them. And that still is in this movie once again. I mean, I think they even pack more in this one because they talk about these things that they did in the past and how they met and just these little moments, and it really, especially towards the end, comes to a head once again where it's the emotional impact between the two of them, the emotional conflict between the two of them, and it really keeps that at the center, and I love that about these movies. And in this one, not only do we see even more of their love for each other, their fear for what might happen to each other and what they might do to each other, but they actually are really funny in this one. There's a couple moments, specifically the whole movie, but with them as well, that are just really funny. I don't want to spoil them, but they just have these little moments that are really good with each other. The cinematography for this movie is probably at its best out of all the three because, I mean, just everything, the lighting, specifically in one location, is just beautiful. And in a haunting way, obviously. Like it's scary, but I mean it's beautiful because it works so well. It's almost like abstract. It's weird. It's like you don't exactly know where the light's coming from, and going along with that, the actual effects for the possessions and the things that happen to them, I mean, they really went for it in this one. They did not hold back. They I mean, it was violent, it was creepy and scary, and it just kept going. It wasn't just like this whole let me jump around on the bed or whatever. I mean, there was like contorting a lot. There was a lot of cracking. I mean, it was really good. They really went for it this time. The other thing I was surprised about, that I was actually kind of happy about, was that there was this interesting new angle to it. And from what we had seen in the trailer, it seemed like it was going to be like all like a trial for like the whole movie. You know, like I thought it was going to be like Trial of the Chicago Demon. It actually was more of a mystery in terms of finding the evidence for that trial. So the trial actually rarely comes up like at all. Because of that, we actually get to spend even more time with Ed and Lorraine as they go on this journey trying to figure out all these clues. And I thought that that was really great because we got to spend even more time with them than I think in the last two movies, where you know, in terms of the runtime, they weren't in it as much because we would go back and forth between the family and them. And I did like that there was sort of this new angle with it. I won't say what it is, but it's maybe not straight demonic possession or just demons doing all of these killings. And it was a very interesting idea. Obviously, it's based off of real life, so it's not like they just came up with this, but it was a really interesting one to do for their third movie, to try to do something different. However, as always, I have sort of a high and a low for this point. It almost reminded me, it was really weird. I kept thinking of the Hangover trilogy. The first two movies follow a formula, and the third movie breaks that formula. And not in always a great way. I want to make a disclaimer, this is way better than The Hangover 3. In this one, it definitely breaks that formula of going back and forth between the family who's having a bunch of issues and things are going wrong and things are really weird around their house, and then later on in the other half of the movie, Lorraine and Ed come in. But in this one, it just, the thing happens, this murder happens at the beginning, and then they go on this like journey, like I said, like it's a mystery to find this evidence and figure out what is it that caused this kid Arnie to commit murder if he's not still possessed at the moment. And while it's a very interesting idea, it tonally wasn't as scary. Like, trust me, there's still a lot of scary moments in this, and it's still very creepy. But for me, it was more of like a character journey, to be honest. It felt a little more generic. Not totally or anything, but just more so than the other two, because the other two, specifically the first one, their thing is it's gritty, it's demons. It is super creepy, scary stuff. Yeah, there's some jump scares or whatever, but it's mostly like it's just gritty, dark. This is what satanic crap is. This one felt more Hollywood, more mainstream, more, other villains coming in, and just it felt scripted, if that makes any sense. It wasn't just like, okay, there's this event and we're going to really dive into what this event looked like. It was more, obviously, because it's a mystery, it's going to be a little more scripted, but it just felt it. It felt a little more generic Hollywood sequel. And again, that says something about the first two movies, that this one wasn't as good, because this one was still really good. And there were a lot of moments that were really incredible. But just overall, it just feels, especially towards the end, there's some twists here and there, and it just kind of felt like, even if it's based off real life, and if that wasn't something they adapted, it just felt in terms of this movie compared to the other two, that it just didn't feel as raw and creepy in the moment. One other thing I was kind of bugged about there was just some logical things that didn't quite make sense. Like when they start at the beginning, they were like, maybe there's something we missed, and they start going through all of their clues again, and their tapes and what they heard and what they had recorded and seen. There were some things that they start looking at or doing that I'm like, I feel like if this was another movie and you had just come in and we would see that, you would have already looked at those things. You would have already said, can I see this, or can I take a look deeper into this? Another thing was that the villain, I won't say who or what it is, but there were just a few times where they have to do something very specific. And it was just one of those like generic villain tropes where they could just do it again over and over until they succeed, and they just don't. They just waste time, or they get distracted. I can't be too specific about it, but it just didn't make sense that it's like, okay, well, you didn't succeed. You could literally just do it again, like right now. Overall, this was definitely, I think, the weakest of the series, but that again is still saying something about the other two, because this was still, in terms of like sequels, far better than most other horror sequels that come out with generic scripts. Again, this is based off real stories, but it was just still, it had so much heart to it, especially towards the end. You still care about Ed and Lorraine as a couple so much, and you just want to see them be together. It did have a lot of scares to it. There was one part specifically I was like, that was gross. That was ugh. And again, the cinematography was incredible. They just, in terms of a visual style of this movie, this was definitely, I think, the best one, because they really were able to go for it. Tonally, it just seemed to be a little less scary. It also could be that I have watched like one horror movie per week over the last year, and I'm just really desensitized to it. It could just be me. But as long as these two main characters are in the movies, honestly, I'll just keep watching them, because, like I said, whether or not the scares are actually there, you still care. I'm going to give The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It a 3 out of 4. Let me know what you think of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It in the comments below. What is your favorite of the 3 in the trilogy? Make sure to like and subscribe for more, and as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.